maybe some recruiting conversation. Bryce Koon from 247. Bryce, welcome back to the show. I know you're getting ready for Texas, San Antonio. Correct? Lloyd?
He has his mic off. It's not me, it's him.
Bryce, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
There
he is.
I was going to catch shit
so
for
like
that.
I've never done this before. Yeah, gosh.
2024 got
it's
you in a
ridiculous.
tizzy.
Appreciate you waiting, dude.
Yeah, man. It's no, man. I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, getting ready to go to San Antonio tomorrow and check out some of those future Tigers playing in the All-American Bowl down there in the Alamo Dome. So it should be a ton of fun. Never been in San Antonio, so
It's a good spot.
For some
It's
good
actually
places to eat.
It's pretty nice
And everything.
Yep, I enjoy it. I was down there for the All-American game or like the underclassmen combine when I was a junior. So that was probably the last time I've been there. But it was nice. It's even better probably now than it was back then. So
Mikey ran a 4.4.
I did. It was clocked on the website. You can go look at it. You have to search for it now.
439.
Yeah, the laser.
444. It was. You act like I'm joking. I'm 100% positive, serious.
There's no jokes here. No jokes. All serious.
I know. I
I
don't
sense some
understand.
disbelief over
It was
there.
literally on the website. I ran it there at the combine.
I believe you.
You don't, obviously.
It's fine.
But, all right, so obviously all of the big news in college football, the big news that's around here in Baton Rouge, whole defensive staff gets fired. We're on the show. We've talked to you about this. I wasn't sure if Matt House was going to be gone. I thought they were going to retain him, fire everybody else. I think as the season went on, I think the locker room started to deteriorate. At least that's what it feels like. And the decision was made, I believe it was made weeks prior. It wasn't made yesterday or 2 days ago. It was made prior to that. They made the decision after the bowl game. But now they have a whole staff to hire and to, hopefully hire the right guys. Who are you hearing as the leading candidates? Obviously, the Twitter world is Blake Baker is the number one candidate, leading candidate. Is that real? Is that what you're hearing? Talk to us.
Yeah, I think that when it became apparent how bad this defense was, that's when the kind of rumors of Blake Baker kind of started. And that was, you could make the argument that was, 3, 4, 5 games into the season. So I think that Baker has been a guy that, not only just LSU fans and the media, but I think that the decision makers, which is Brian Kelly and a host of other guys, have always kind of kept tabs on. Now, the ties are obvious of why you would want a guy like Baker, what he was able to build in Missouri, and also, too, his experience in Louisiana. This is a guy that I believe he's from Mandeville, so has family ties to the Mandeville area through his wife. I believe that's what it is. So, look, this would be coming home for him. So, yeah, look, Brandon Marcello over at 24/7 Sports, one of our great national guys, that's what he kind of, led off this evening with, saying, hey, there's your leading candidate. And then, look, in our industry, we're supposed to put out these hot boards, and I caution fans because, look, it's really just a list of guys that are available or a list of guys that, are seemingly always in the rumor mill. So, look, you're going to see the name Will Muschamp thrown around. Do I think Will Muschamp comes to LSU? No. You're going to see a guy like Lance Guidry from Miami. Another one of those names. Travis Williams at Arkansas. Jesse Minter at Michigan was one that we put together because, look, who knows what's going to happen to Jim Harbaugh. So I think that, Blake Baker is the leading candidate right now because it makes a ton of sense. And, I think also, too, and this is one that I personally haven't, heard mentioned, but, have our coworkers have, different ties and everything. It's Bob Diaco, who's currently on staff. Now, I know that actually scares some fans to death to keep anything that was, remnant of what happened this past year. But I think it's something that Brian Kelly and someone who really respects and has the ear of Brian Kelly when it comes to decision making.
Lloyd?
Yeah, you mentioned that, and that's what I wanted to kind of get with you on is whenever you say you put out as a leading candidate, is that just somebody that he thinks would be a leading candidate, or is there any actual smoke to the name of Baker's been contacted, anything like that? I don't want to put you on the spot necessarily, but did he mention that name as like a wish list, or is it somebody that maybe he has ear to the ground and has heard something that Baker is it makes the most sense, or is that LSU may be in contact with him? Because these things move very quickly. As soon as you announce the firing of Matt House, it feels like that means the next name up would probably be that somebody that LSU at least has their ear to the ground on.
Yeah, so I'll paint it this way. I don't think Brian Kelly made these changes, and I agree with what Mikey said. This wasn't something that was made, just due to the bad performance against Wisconsin. This was made, this is something that's been made a while ago. I think that he's known who he has wanted to go after. So I would feel comfortable saying that it's someone who Blake Baker's a guy that makes sense, but has also been someone who Kelly has probably already been in contact with, after making the public announcement today, through the LSU sports media, alert that you get on Twitter or whatever it is. Fans like to sit there and think that, okay, now he's going to move on. No, I think this is something that once it became communicated to the people who were not going to be retained, Kelly moved swiftly. So I would feel comfortable saying, and talking, with Brandon on this a little bit, is that this is a guy that not only just makes sense from when you look at the resume and where he's been, but also someone that Kelly has been in contact with.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, but when you put together a little bit of the I guess the information that you have, but also your own knowledge of the situation, your own knowledge of this coaching staff, if you were putting together this dream team of the replacement coaching staff to be put into place here, who are you going with?
All right, so I would go Blake Baker. That's just for me. I think he's done a really good job at Missouri. I think he's a really good recruiter, understands Louisiana, and those three things all file into what Brian Kelly has talked about, what he wants, as part of the staff. And so I think Baker's a guy that's an up-and-comer that, look, you're still going to have to pay because he just signed an extension. Well, LSU fans should know extensions really don't mean anything, when it comes to coaching changes with the recent one exodus they just had of Mike Denbrock. But it's believed that this extension has been signed, so that'll be interesting to see the financials of what he needs to work out. But if you gave me Blake Baker as the DC, another guy that I think is going to be the leading target, and so we'll use those words. The candidate, I will go back to, that's something that makes sense both on the front of interest level and has been reached out to. The target is something that I think is more of a wish list thing, and I'd go Bo Davis from Texas. I think that when you look at defensive line, what is in-house at LSU, what they brought in through the transfer portal, what they brought in through the high school ranks, like they really need a guy that can develop some of that talent. And, I had at the beginning of the season with my own show, I picked Texas to be in the playoff because I just thought they were super improved on the defensive line. We've seen that. Like Sweat is a massive guy that is going to, play a pivotal role at the next level. His development has been huge, and a lot of other guys. Yeah, super physical. So I like what Bo Davis, and this is a guy that Brian Kelly has been linked to before. Like he has tried to hire Bo Davis, even going back to last year. So I think they're going to kick the tires on him again. Is that going to be a ploy of Davis to try to get more money from Texas? Or is it going to actually be where he gets to Baton Rouge this time? I don't know. So I think that's where you got to go with that. Defensive backs coach, you talk about that one. The obvious one that a lot of fans, I think thought would pop earlier than, maybe it has taken is probably Corey Raymond. I mean, look, it makes sense. No, the guy doesn't need an introduction. I think if you can bring Corey Raymond back, it not only solidifies what you want in locking down the state in terms of recruiting, which they've already done a pretty good job of, but you look at the one guy in the top 10 of this state that they didn't get, and it's Wardell Mack. So that's a cornerback. That's a guy that maybe Corey Raymond could, float around. It's a guy that Corey Raymond was able to convince at one time to commit to Florida. So, not saying that Wardell Mack's going to come to LSU because he's already signed with Texas, but it's just along the lines of getting those elite defensive backs in state. So, I'm going Bo Davis. I'm going with Blake Baker at DC. I would like to see Corey Raymond at defensive backs coach. And then, guys, I've been around programs that they sometimes split it. So where they have guys that are a safeties coach and a cornerbacks coach, or they have them under, one unit. For me personally, I like when there's one guy, one voice leading the room. Yeah. It creates a little more cohesion. And with all the public, statements about the lack of communication between not only just player and player, but player and coach this season, I think having one voice on the back end, it would be huge. So I'd go Corey Raymond on the back end. And look, I'm sure they'll add like an analyst or an assistant guy that has experience, with safeties or corners to help out in that room and learn. Yeah. But it'll be interesting. And then you kind of get into some of the other ones. I mean, you can make a case. It looks like John Jancic's going to be retained. If he gets to go back to, linebackers, more of a natural fit for him. And then obviously, the potential analysts they could add. But I think if you just looked at DB, defensive line in DC. That would be my wish list as of 12 hours after the announcement that they were going to make these big changes.
Do you think that the chances of Corey Raymond are higher with Blake Baker being, if he's hired as the DC, because of the continuity, because they know each other, because they were on the same staff? You think that is? I think we're in the group. I don't know if it's a consensus in here, but I think it's pretty close that Corey Raymond is gonna happen. I don't know in what capacity or what, but it seems like it is. And if Blake Baker gets the DC job, it feels like, he's not going to be a lot of conversation or a lot of selling to get him there as a cornerbacks coach. Because at the end of the day, the DC's got to pick a staff.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about today on our Go 24/7 podcast of Brian Kelly is such a CEO type. And, I think, Mikey, you and I have talked about this. If you go back to the two mistakes that he probably made on that initial staff, it was not retaining Corey Raymond and the lack of a special teams coordinator. That was probably the two big mistakes when it came to staff management that you could say, hey, we wish we could get a redo on that.
Right.
So, look, these are grown men that are in an office, and I think they understand that this is a business. So I think LSU fans would hope that any potential frustration, any potential, and this is just me, I would say, just a hypothetical situation. I don't know the ins and outs of what happened. Yeah, speculation. But if there's any frustration of Corey Raymond, not really getting the attention that he maybe wanted to stay at LSU the first time around, you would hope that would be able to pass. And I think a guy like Brian Kelly, who, look, he's been around the block once or twice before, 30 years coaching, he understands how to handle these relationships. So, I would feel comfortable saying that, Raymond is probably the leading candidate to be the defensive backs coach. And then to kind of, parlay what you just said, you bring in Blake Baker, who has the familiarity. That helps, let's say, absolve any of the potential wounds that you might have between Kelly and Raymond. I'm not saying there are any, but we were talking about, and Lloyd said, this is just pure speculation on that part.
And you also, you brought up the point of seeing in the past people split the responsibilities of, hey, you're in here, you're covering the corners, you're in here, you're covering the safeties. I don't think there's a chance in hell you're going to get Corey back here with the split defensive backs room.
Yeah.
I just don't – I don't see that being a thing at all. I can remember back to the time when he first came on here, even as a GA, he was almost in a way kind of the guy that was doing technique, and Doug Mallory was coaching basically the scheme. And he was coaching technique and guys' footwork and guys' fundamentals and all of that stuff. I think if he's going to come back here as just a defensive backs coach, there's no way in hell you're getting him here having him split the job with someone else after what he has done here in the past and also after what he left here to go do in the title that he had.
Yeah, look, I think so, staff and coaches and ADs, they get creative, in the job titles they can use. So, one, what does that do? It allows you to pay, a guy a little bit more money because of the title that he holds. I'll agree with you. I don't think if you bring him in to be the quarterbacks coach, that's going to necessarily be enough for him to take the job. I will say this. I think he would like to come back to LSU, and I think LSU would like for him to come back, to Baton Rouge. The problem is, and I don't even say it's a problem, how are you going to get there?
Right.
What is going to be the language of that contract? What's going to be the title that you give him? Because, look, there's some talented guys. We just mentioned, if you bring in Blake Baker, but you also bring in a guy like Bo Davis, Bo Davis, that's another
What's the
guy
likelihood of that? What's the likelihood of that
him,
happening?
The Bo Davis situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that's
the only name I've
probably
really
the
heard.
name. Yeah, it's got to be the first call if I'm LSU, because Brian Kelly's been trying to hire him for the past 2 years. When Kelly got to Baton Rouge 2 years ago, Bo Davis was a call. When there was when Jamar Cain, left to go to the NFL to go to Denver, Bo Davis was once again the call back in the spring. So I just think it makes the most sense from the track record we have seen. I'm not saying that, Bo Davis is getting on a plane and someone needs to go track the flight to see if he's going to land in Baton Rouge, to meet with Brian Kelly. But I do think that it's right now, like Lloyd said, it's kind of the only name that floated out here. Now, I will say this. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on this. When you are a defensive coordinator or a coordinator in general that has a successful scheme, part of the conversation has to be, I want to bring in my guys. because what I did was successful here, and the easiest transition, the smoothest transition, is going for me to have that continuity of bringing in my guys. So, maybe Blake Baker, if he is the guy, or any DC that's taking the role, he comes, he's hired, and then he comes to Kelly, and Scott Woodward with a list and says, hey, here's the, 2 or 3 D-line coaches I like. Here's the 2 or 3 linebackers coaches. Here's the 2 or 3, defensive back coaches. And maybe the guys we've listed are on that list. Maybe they're not. But I think that a lot of that's going to determine, who is the DC.
Well, and I think that, in the day and age of Twitter and social media and instant reaction, players are no longer shy about letting their feelings out in social media, right? Yeah. So you're seeing a bunch of stuff being thrown out there, and comments being made after the news was that Matt House got fired. A lot of these guys, Harold Perkins being one of them.
What news are you getting? What was that? What's happening?
Are you Adam Scheftering it right now?
Yeah. Were you getting Scheftered? Bryce?
No, you're good. Yeah. I'll just say this. I'll say this real quick. The conversation that we just had, I feel even more confident about what we just talked about.
Well, I love that.
Who sent you a text?
We talked about a lot of stuff. What are you talking about?
Who sent you a text? We won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I can't tell. Yeah, there's no one watching, right? This isn't live or anything.
We'll bleep it out. This is not live.
Cut this.
Cut this. No, the conversation we just had about, that leading candidate for DC.
Yeah.
And then, something we've already talked about,
okay.
In the defensive back room. And I think people already kind of knew. Like, Mikey, it's not really spoiling anything. You kind of talked about everyone involved or who has a connection, who has a brother or sister, someone that works around it. Everyone kind of feels like that Corey Raymond is a guy they would bring back. So I would say that those two guys, I feel pretty comfortable about where things stand.
Going back to the continuity conversation, right? Like we talked about, Blake Baker recruited Harold Perkins here. He was a big reason why they got him here, right? Yeah. So, you see all these guys making comments after House is gone. I feel like bringing in Blake Baker would calm all that down, right? It would calm the interest from other schools trying to come and get Harold Perkins because he'd be comfortable with, Harold Perkins would be comfortable with Blake Baker. And look, you don't make decisions based off 1 or 2 or 3 players. You make decisions based off what you think is best for the program long term. I get that. But 2 things can be true. Blake Baker may be the best coordinator, best decision long term. Also, maybe the best guy to keep the guys that you have already here without them leaving and going elsewhere. Because you already saw Lance Hurd leaving, probably going to end up at Ole Miss.
Yeah, no, I'll echo that. I think he does end up at Ole Miss. We've talked about Lance Hurd, but, you mentioned that. I mean, look, in a perfect world, you want to make the decision that helps you in the short term and in the long term. And I think it is very rare that you see, that happen across this sport because just of different factors, and the sport changes constantly. So when you talk about a guy like, Harold Perkins, look, I don't think people are talking directly to Harold Perkins, but people in his camp, people in Deshaun Womack's camp. There are people, when they saw the news break at A&M, at Ole Miss, at Alabama, other places across the country, Texas, that are going to sit there and say, okay, someone get in touch with said uncle or said brother or
now what do you
said
mean?
agent.
But say, what exactly is directly these days?
Yeah, directly by indirect, we'll call it that. But yeah, it's, that's going to happen. And so I'm with you, Mikey. Like, if you bring in Blake Baker, the relationship that he already built with a guy like Harold Perkins, and really just getting back to, for a lot of these kids, they're saying, okay, this is someone who understands me. He understands what it's like to be at LSU. He understands what it's like to be a Louisiana guy. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, guys, and I might be wrong in this, Blake Baker played linebacker at Tulane. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong in that?
No,
so this is a guy who understands what it's like to, be, a Louisiana kid, per se, for a lot of these incoming freshmen. You got to think about these kids, too. There's a lot of these early enrollees that are going to, get to classes on the first day classes, get to one of their first workouts, and everyone that recruited them from a coaching perspective, not the Frank Wilson and Sherman Wilsons of the world, but the coaching perspective, well, they're not here anymore. So, bringing in a guy like that, I think it lines up with Brian Kelly's vision of continuity. So, we go back to one of the very first questions you asked. Is there real smoke to it? I think that there's real smoke, but it also, if you just start connecting the dots, it just makes too much sense at this point.
Last question for you, unless you boys, I don't know if you have any more questions. Last question for you. So
Got
obviously,
what I needed.
huh?
Said I got what I needed from the look at the phone.
The decision to fire Matt House came pretty much immediately after the bowl game, right? Like the bowl game ended,
Yeah.
decision made. Feels like the decision to hire the DC and the position coaches, even the OC, right? Feels like those decisions are very, very near to completion, right? They're looming. They're.
Yeah.
Do you see it getting through the week without them making a decision, or do you see this being happening in the next day or so?
Ooh. When you talk about the OC position, obviously you had the on the field audition for Cortez Hankton and Joe Sloan,
Which felt like it went
I
great.
don't know look, and I think Garrett Nussmeier was really impressed. He talked with the media about sitting.
Some
He's already
people
talked with the media about Sloan.
Some people on Twitter thought that Garrett Nussmeier stunk in the game, which I don't know how that happens. How you think that?
But listen, guys, look, we got to remember Twitter is not real life, okay?
You're right.
Because if Twitter was real life, I don't even know, and I'm not making a public proclamation, I don't even know if I'd want to be a part of real life if Twitter was real life. So I'll just say that, and there's no dark comments there, but just it is what it is. But no, look, I think that Hankton and Sloan showed you in a short time period with a short runway, hey, this is what we can do. And I think Nussmeier really liked it. I think Kelly was impressed with it. So
Harold Perkins was impressed with it.
Harold Perkins was impressed with it. Yeah. Also, you got to go check out if you haven't seen it. Like his high school running back highlights are stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous how good that kid was. But you got to go back and look at it. Like if they stick with Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, if that's the decision, everyone knows. Like in that building, everyone knows. The recruits know. Harlan Berry knew when he's committed today. A big time quarterback that's making his decision this weekend probably already knows. Like that's the type of information that you tell your recruits, you tell a select group. It's just not made public. When it comes to the DC position, I think if Blake Baker's the guy, at this point you're just trying to figure out the financials because of the extension that he just signed. Okay, how much is the buyout, and then how much do we have to offer? I think it was like a $1.5 million extension. I don't remember the exact figures that he signed with Missouri, but I think we'd all feel comfortable saying that LSU has the financial means to be able to top that and bring him back to Louisiana. So I could see, unless you get, and maybe I'm working away on the question here, unless they're going out of house for offensive coordinator, I think that decision's been made. Like just personally, like if it's those two guys, there's no point to wait. There's no point in waiting on what you want to do there. And too, not even discounting those guys, but you have, obviously Brad Davis, who I think would be a fantastic, guy to lean on for Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton, as an offensive line coach. You have Frank Wilson. Like, there's going to be a guy with the title or two guys with the title, I think, on the offensive side of the football. But that's going to be a group collaborative effort with all the great minds that LSU has and the coaching staff on that side of the football and with Brian Kelly. Defensively, if it's Blake Baker, let's just go ahead and wrap this thing up. Let's get it done and get back to the portal.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be done the next day or so. I really do. That's just I have no reason to believe that other than the fact that of everything I've been hearing and kind of how quickly they moved after the bowl game and how quickly they feel like they need to move over this last month.
Smart on Baker to get an extension and then get a re-extension if he got. That's a great negotiating tactic.
No doubt. I wonder if he knew.
Yeah, taking a page out of Mike Denbrock's book.
Yeah, I wonder if he knew he was going to take the job here and said, okay, I'm going to negotiate the extension.
That's how agents work.
Smart.
Well, did you see that he posted the clip from what's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie that
I'm Not Leaving?
Through the portal?
Wolf of Wall Street?
I'm Not Leaving. Yeah, he posted that clip 2 days ago. And, whatever.
Well,
you know how that thing goes.
We'll see.
Still trying to figure out what it means. Ain't no fun when the rabbits got
ain't no fun with the rabbit. That's like the big saying now that the players are using.
Yeah. Did you see the video of Braden Swinson? What was he kicking?
He kicked rocks.
It
was rocks.
Kick rocks.
Kick rocks.
They don't say that out there in Atlanta?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
That was kick rocks. That was
creative as hell.
That was very creative.
Literally kicking rocks.
If you know, you know.
It was.
There it is.
Here we go.
Boom.
Is this
Hey, and honestly,
towards,
here's
are the rocks the defensive coaching staff? Like, is that what
No,
we're
I think Matt House is the rocks.
Yeah, he's
We
telling,
could go with the staff.
Yeah.
Let's just be fair and say it's probably the staff.
Yeah.
general staff? Because there's multiple rocks. Maybe it's
Very
I don't
impressive.
know.
Good
Very
catch.
impressive that he kicked all the rocks,
Yeah.
actually.
Didn't miss.
That's
good
actually a
drop.
lot harder than
It's
people
a
realize.
good
It
drop.
was a good drop. It was a great drop. Kept it all clustered, you know?
You can tell they're not in class right now. Got nothing
No, they're
else.
not
I'm going to pick up
School
some
hasn't
rocks.
started yet. It hasn't started yet.
Yeah.
Bryce, dude, I appreciate you. Please, if you hear anything, shoot us a text. Let us know what's going on. I know you're going to be in San Antonio, but phones work over there. It's internet. You know, you can have
Show
it
us your
always.
screen.
Yeah.
Let us know what's going on.
Share your
If you
screen.
get a Schefter update tonight, let us know so we can, be up to date with what's going on. We appreciate you, as always, coming on the show, always making time for us. We'll talk to you when you get back from San Antonio. Big recruiting weekend. It's already been a big recruiting day for LSU. Next time we talk, hopefully it's even bigger. Hopefully Bryce Underwood makes a decision this weekend and it comes us. So we appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will talk to you when you get back from San Antonio.